Alright guys, welcome back into a new series of videos that we're going to be doing, which as you guys can all see by the title is going to be called Feature Theft. And the title is pretty self-explanatory, but this series is going to be along similar lines to the Beyond the Blueprint series in that everything that we're going to be talking about is going to be stuff that I wouldn't mind seeing or that I'd like to see implemented into Madden's franchise mode. The difference here is that rather than those ideas or features coming from the franchise post or something thought up, we're going to be looking at other games, past and present, and basically stealing features from them, hence the name Feature Theft. So now that that's covered, the first feature we're going to be stealing is going to be player condition from Tecmo Super Bowl. And when I say we're stealing it from Tecmo Super Bowl, that's just because that's initially where the idea for this series came from. But this type of feature is something that has been featured in plenty of other sports games. Tecmo Super Bowl had it for years. A Super Nintendo game called Extra Innings had a similar system. And then you even look at games today and you have games like Pro Evolution Soccer that has a player condition system, and then Super Mega Baseball 2, which uses what they call Mojo and is basically using the exact same type of system as Tecmo Super Bowl. And when you think about that for a minute, you have to ask yourself, if a feature is being used in basically the same form nearly 30 years apart, what does that tell you? And it tells me that it's a solid and sound feature that obviously works. And this is something that you could technically say is currently already in Madden with confidence, but I'm going to get into a few of the major differences. But first, we're going to cover the feature or the mechanic itself and exactly how it works. So in Tecmo Super Bowl, there were 4 different player conditions that consisted of bad, average, good, and excellent. And basically these were ratings modifiers. Average was essentially the player's base ratings without any boosts or penalties. It was the normalized player condition. When you started a season, everyone was in average condition. When a player came back from injury, they'd come back in average condition as well. So it was basically just the standard, and like I said, the base ratings of a player. From there you had bad condition, which took every one of his ratings down a notch. Then you had good condition, which took everything up 1 notch, and then you also had excellent, which took everything up 2 notches. And Madden has experimented with this kind of thing a couple of times over the years. First back in Madden 12 with DPP, or Dynamic Player Performance, and that was something that I really miss, and I think that it had a ton of potential because it not only affected ratings, but it also affected traits as well, and it changed throughout the game as well as week to week. The problem with that though was that it was way too reactionary, or sensitive is probably a better word to use there. You'd get in situations where you sack a quarterback once or twice, and then from that point on for the rest of the game, as soon as the ball snapped, he's looking to run and avoid a sack. And that kind of issue is something you kind of expect with a feature like that. It's going to take some fine tuning, and in my opinion it was a great concept, and with that fine tuning I think it could have been excellent. But that brings us back to what's currently in place, which is confidence. And I've never really been a fan of confidence, and a lot of that stems from Madden 16 when drive goals were implemented. And basically what happened there was an issue that basically made CFM unplayable for the first month or so after launch, but that's kind of besides the point. But another reason is that when I look at confidence, I feel like there's a few problems. One of which is that it feels like it's a mechanic that's trying to be this weird hybrid between player morale and then being what modifies a player's on-field performance. And I feel like those should be 2 separate things. A player can be unhappy and not let it affect his play, just as a player can be happy but still play like crap. And then the other issue, which I think is the bigger problem, is that there just really isn't a whole lot of dynamic or variance to the whole system. It's very much a rich get richer, poor get poorer system that is very performance based. You play well, you win games, you run for 200 yards, you throw touchdowns, and confidence goes up. You lose games, you throw picks, you do bad things, and it goes down. And then when you look at the mechanic itself, a 0 to 99 scale for something like that is just kind of a weird way of handling it, and in my opinion just an overly complicated way of doing things. It's almost like handling player morale with that kind of scale. It just doesn't make much sense to me to use a 99-point scale for something that could easily be cut down to 5 or 6 categories, or even in this case 4. And what you kind of get with the way it's handled as well is that it's so slow to build up that it usually doesn't play much of a role early on in the season. There isn't really any kind of effect there at at all, and so it doesn't start kicking in until the middle of the season, and it just seems like this kind of snowball mechanic where it slowly builds, but then by the end of the year, either your whole team is getting boosts or your whole team is being penalized. And the main thing when I look at something like this is just creating a more interesting week-to-week dynamic. And when I look at Tecmo Super Bowl setup, even in its simplest form, I think that's better than what Confidence provides. You have your 4 conditions: bad, average or normal, good, and excellent, and each comes with a certain ratings modifier which either raises or lowers that player's ratings. And then each week it has the potential to change and go up or down or stay the same even. It wasn't really based on performance, and I think that's a key element. With Confidence, you know you play well or do good and your confidence is going to go up. You don't play well and you lose and it's going to go down. And that's what I mean by there not being very much dynamic there. It's a very simple approach with very simple results. And with a Tecmo Super Bowl type setup, each week you're getting this new dynamic against the other team where there might be a mismatch, but maybe your guy is in excellent condition and their guy is in bad, so that mismatch is a lot more even. Or maybe it's the other way around where the matchup has an even bigger discrepancy than it did before because of that. And then over the course of the season, guys can go on hot and cold streaks where they end up on excellent or bad for a couple of weeks, and as the season progresses, you don't really know how that's going to play out week to week. And I just think something like that is a lot more interesting than what Confidence provides, like I said. And then in addition to that, let's say you wanted to build on it, I think you could have some interesting factors play into it as well. For instance, instead of just having the static boost where every player in a certain condition goes up or down the same amount, you could tie the boost into something like dev traits. So a player with a superstar dev in excellent condition is going to get far more of a boost than a player that has a slow or normal dev would, also in excellent condition, to kind of emulate that flash of that superstar capability. While on the other side, a player in bad condition that has a slow or a normal dev trait is going to be penalized more than a player that has superstar dev. Another thing you could do is tie a player's condition into something like game prep, where the player's condition that week not only acts as a modifier for his ratings, but also for the amount of XP he gains from practice towards skill points. If he's in bad condition, he's going to earn less than he normally would. If he's in excellent, he would earn more than he normally would, and that would essentially be to emulate a strong or poor week of practice. Something like this also opens the door for something like a consistency trait to play a role in how a player's condition can change over the course of a season. Veteran players would be more steady and less prone to those radical peaks and valleys, while rookies might be bouncing around week to week. And then one last thing in similar vein to that could be tying that same kind of principle into coaches, where a coach like Bill Belichick is going to do the same kind of thing of keeping players more steady or slanted towards the positive side even, while a young coach might result in players being more prone to changing each week. I think that's going to do it though. Hope you guys enjoyed this concept, and I'm planning on doing more of these throughout the year and moving forward. I asked it a while back on Twitter, but I'll pose the same question for you guys here as well. What features from other games would you like to see, or do you think would work well in Madden, and more specifically franchise mode? It doesn't even necessarily have to be a sports game feature, but leave those in the comments for me and I'll be sure to check them out. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.